The trade station called Karos Ring floated between three star lanes like a great metal halo. Ships of every size and shape docked along its outer rim, carrying species from dozens of worlds. To most of the galaxy, the station was a symbol of cooperation. To humans, it was mostly a place where things broke in very creative ways. Elias Trent walked through one of the lower maintenance corridors with a tool pack slung over his shoulder. He was not important. He did not wear a command badge or a diplomatic sash. His uniform was plain, marked only with the symbol of the Human Systems Corps. His job was simple: keep the station running when others assumed it would not fail. Humans had earned that role slowly. Other species considered them loud, stubborn, and strangely calm in dangerous situations. They were rarely invited into high-level discussions, but they were always called when alarms would not stop screaming. Elias had been on Karos Ring for 6 months. In that time, he had repaired plasma conduits designed by beings with 6 hands, recalibrated gravity plates meant for floating species, and once crawled inside a waste processor that tried to dissolve him. None of it surprised him anymore. What did surprise him was the alert that flashed across his wrist screen: power instability. Diplomatic wing. Unauthorized access restricted. Elias frowned. The diplomatic wing was far above his clearance level. That area was protected, shielded, and constantly monitored. If something was wrong there, it meant the problem was serious. Before he could question it, the station lights flickered. The gentle hum of artificial gravity wavered for half a second. Elias felt the floor tremble under his boots. "That's not good," he muttered. His wrist screen updated again. A micrometeor impact had struck one of the external power collectors. Automated systems were attempting reroutes, but the load was uneven. If the surge reached the wrong sector, entire environmental systems could fail. Elias did not wait for permission. He ran. He moved through corridors that were not meant for humans, ducking under low arches and squeezing past narrow junctions. Emergency lights cast everything in red and gold. Voices echoed over the intercom in half a dozen languages, none of them calm. By the time he reached the access panel near the diplomatic wing's secondary power node, the readings were climbing fast. The automated system was hesitating, cycling through protocols too slowly. Elias knelt and opened the panel. The design was alien, but the logic was familiar. Energy in, energy out. Too much pressure in one place meant something else would burst. "Come on," he said softly, fingers moving fast. He bypassed a safety lock, then another. Warning symbols flared across his screen, but he ignored them. He rerouted the surge manually, bleeding excess power into a maintenance sink that was never meant to handle that load. The station shuddered, then the lights stabilized. For a brief moment, everything was quiet. Elias exhaled, heart pounding. He closed the panel and stood, rolling his shoulders. He had done it. The station was safe. That was when he heard the sound behind him. It was not a shout or an alarm. It was a sharp, crystalline crack, like ice under sudden pressure. He turned. Standing at the far end of the corridor was a being he recognized immediately from training files. Tall, elegant, and faintly glowing. Her form was composed of layered crystal plates, with soft light flowing between them. The Orcs were rare on Karos Ring, and their diplomats were treated with extreme caution. This one was Envoy Saithra. Her normally smooth surface was rippling. Clear, shimmering fluid was seeping between the crystalline layers of her lower torso, dripping onto the floor where it steamed faintly in the artificial air. Her multifaceted eyes focused on Elias. "You made me wet, human," she said. "You must clean it." The words echoed down the corridor. Elias froze. His first thought was that he had misunderstood. His second thought was that he was about to be arrested, fired, or possibly incinerated by station security. He raised his hands slowly, palms open. I'm sorry," he said. Saithra stepped closer. Each movement made more of the shimmering fluid escape her form. The light within her body flickered unevenly, like a failing circuit. "You altered the energy flow," she said. "Your action destabilized my circulation membrane." The overflow has begun. Ah, Elias's eyes dropped to the floor, to the fluid pooling around her feet. His engineer's brain clicked into motion. That's coolant, he said quietly. It is life, Sethra replied. Before he could respond, security drones rounded the corner, their weapons humming as they locked onto both of them. Behind them came station officials and medical staff of several species, all speaking at once. What is going on here? Why is a human in this sector? The envoy is leaking containment protocols now. A tall, insect-like medical officer stepped forward, waving scanning limbs over Sethra. Its color shifted rapidly, a sign of distress. This is unacceptable, it said. Auralis physiology is incompatible with station medical systems. We must isolate her and contact her delegation. Sethra's gaze never left Elias. He caused this, she said. He will address it. The corridor fell silent. Elias swallowed. I rerouted power to stop a blackout, he said. I didn't know it would affect your environment system. You acted without permission, a station official snapped. That surge passed through diplomatic life support stabilizers. And if I hadn't acted, Elias said, surprising even himself with how steady his voice was, half the station would be dark right now. Including this wing. Oh? The medical officer clicked its mandibles. Responsibility will be determined later. For now, the envoy must be stabilized. Sethra shifted, and a sharp cracking sound came from her side. The light within her dimmed further. There is no later, she said calmly. My structure will harden within 4 cycles, if the overflow continues. Your systems will not help me. Elias stepped forward before anyone could stop him. I can help, he said. Every eye turned toward him. You are human, the medical officer said. You are not trained in Auralis biology. No. Elias agreed. But I understand systems under stress. And I understand when something is about to fail. Sethra studied him. The Auralis were known for their patience. But there was urgency in her stillness now. Explain, she said. The surge didn't damage you, Elias said. It pushed more energy through your circulation than it was designed for. The fluid isn't leaking because something broke. It's leaking because there's nowhere else for it to go. Several officials protested at once. This is speculation. This is reckless. This human already violated protocol. Elias ignored them. He crouched near the pooling fluid, careful not to touch it. His wrist screen pulled up thermal and energy readings. You don't have an emergency release, he said to Sethra. Because no one ever thought you'd need one. Her light pulsed once, slowly. That is correct, she said. If we don't manage the overflow, Elias continued, your internal pressure will crystallize you from the inside out. The medical officer's color went pale. That matches our projections, it admitted reluctantly. Elias looked up. Then let me fix it. Silence stretched. Finally, Sethra spoke. If you attempt this and fail, she said, the diplomatic consequences will be severe. Elias nodded. I know. Why do you accept this risk? She asked. He hesitated, then answered honestly. Because I caused it, he said, and because walking away doesn't sit right with humans. Something shifted in Sethra's posture. Her light steadied, just a little. Very well, she said. Clean what you have made wet, human. Elias exhaled and got to work. He requested basic tools, filtration cloth, and portable thermal regulators. The station AI hesitated, then complied under diplomatic override. As equipment arrived, Elias explained every step out loud, more for transparency than confidence. He created a controlled channel, guiding the excess fluid away from Sethra's body without shocking her system. He cooled it gradually, filtered it, then redirected it back in measured amounts. His hands moved with careful precision, sweat running down his back. Minutes felt like hours. The fluid slowed. The cracking stopped. Sethra's internal light stabilized, glowing evenly once more. When Elias finally stepped back, his legs shook with exhaustion. The corridor was silent again, but this time it was different. No one spoke because they were watching something they did not fully understand. Saithra straightened. The last traces of fluid evaporated harmlessly from the floor. "You have fulfilled the request," she said. Elias nodded, too tired to speak. Around them, station officials began whispering. Medical staff recorded data rapidly. Security drones powered down. Uncertain, Elias did not notice any of it. He only noticed that the station lights were steady, and the envoy was alive. For the first time since arriving at Karos Ring, Elias Trent realized that something small and human had just shifted something very large in the galaxy. The corridor did not stay quiet for long. Once the immediate danger passed, station authority rushed in like a delayed storm. Senior officials arrived with floating data slates. Legal advisors spoke in sharp whispers, and armed security units took positions along the walls. Elias Trent stood near the open maintenance panel, his hands still shaking slightly, grease and crystal residue staining his gloves. Envoy Saithra remained calm at the center of it all. Her form had regained its smooth clarity, light flowing through her crystalline structure in slow, steady waves. To an untrained eye, she looked unharmed. To those who understood Aurelus biology, the fact that she was still standing was close to a miracle. "You violated restricted protocols," one official said, pointing at Elias. "You acted without clearance, interfered with diplomatic life support systems, and placed an envoy at risk." Elias opened his mouth to answer, but Saithra spoke first. "He placed me at risk," she said evenly, "and then he removed that risk with his own hands." The official hesitated. "Envoy, with respect, this matter concerns me," Saithra replied, "and I am still functional because of the human." That silenced the room. The Aurelus delegation arrived moments later, their presence changing the atmosphere instantly. 3 crystalline beings entered, their forms tall and faceted, light patterns shifting in complex signals. They paused when they saw Saithra standing unrestrained among humans and machines. "Saithra," one of them said, their voice resonating softly. "We detected a destabilization." "It has passed," she replied. "Because of him." Their attention turned to Elias. He felt very small. The delegation began a rapid exchange of light pulses between themselves, too fast for human eyes to follow. Station officials waited nervously. This was the moment where incidents became diplomatic disasters. Finally, one of the Aurelus stepped forward. "You are the human who altered the power flow," it said. "Yes," Elias answered, "to prevent a station-wide failure." "And you understood the consequences?" "No," Elias said honestly, "but I accepted them." That answer caused another ripple of light among the Aurelus. Saithra addressed the delegation directly. He applied responsibility without delay. When the overflow began, he did not retreat. He did not seek permission to abandon the problem. "That is unusual," the delegate said. "It is human," she replied. The station commander cleared her throat. "Envoys, while we appreciate the positive outcome, protocol exists for a reason. If every technician acted independently, your protocol did not save me," Saithra said calmly. It froze. That ended the discussion. The delegation requested a private chamber. Elias expected to be escorted away, but instead, Saithra gestured for him to follow. "You will attend," she said. "I'm not a diplomat," Elias protested weakly. "You are relevant," she replied. The chamber was designed for species without faces. Light-adjusting walls shifted to match Aurelus perception, bathing the room in soft gradients. Elias stood awkwardly near the entrance, while the crystalline beings arranged themselves in a loose circle. "What you did today," one delegate said, "has no direct parallel in our records." Elias shifted his weight. "I just fixed a problem." "You fixed a living system that is not yours," another replied. "Without instruction." Saithra turned slightly toward him. "Among my people." The phrase I spoke carries weight. To clean what one makes wet is to accept consequence without denial. Many species speak of responsibility. Few practice it under pressure. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "If I break something, I fix it. That's all." "That is not all," Saithra said. "It is a pattern." The delegates discussed quietly again, light patterns overlapping like slow-moving stars. When they finished, the lead delegate addressed Elias. "You will not be punished," it said. "However, we wish to understand how your species approaches failure." Elias blinked. "Failure? Yes. You assumed you might fail, yet you acted anyway." Elias thought for a moment. "Humans fail all the time. That's how we learn what not to do next." The room fell still. "That perspective," the delegate said slowly, "is dangerous." Elias nodded. "Yeah, we've noticed." Later, after the meeting ended, Elias was escorted back to the maintenance levels. He expected relief, but instead he felt uneasy. Too many eyes followed him now. Whispers spread through the station, growing with every retelling. A human caused an incident. A human fixed an alien. A human ignored protocol and lived. The station AI flagged him for review. His supervisor summoned him immediately. "You're lucky," she said, arms crossed. "Lucky the envoy backed you." "I didn't do it for that," Elias replied. "I know," she said quietly. That's what scares them. In the days that followed, changes rippled outward. Human engineers were suddenly requested for joint diagnostics. Not ordered. Requested. Other species watched closely as humans worked, noticing things they had dismissed before. How humans talked through problems out loud. How they admitted uncertainty without freezing. How they treated mistakes not as shame, but as data. Saithra requested another meeting with Elias, this time alone. They met in a quiet observation deck overlooking the stars. The light from distant systems refracted through her crystalline form, casting patterns across the floor. "You are unsettled," she said. "Everyone's looking at me like I'm a problem," Elias replied. "You are," she said. "But problems are interesting." He smiled despite himself. "What do you want from me?" "Understanding," Saithra said. "When you worked to stabilize me, your stress levels increased, yet your precision improved." "Why?" Elias thought about it. "Because it mattered. Because you weren't a system anymore. You were a person." Saithra considered that. "Many species separate function from identity. Humans don't," Elias said. "Not very well anyway." She stepped closer. "Then that may be why your species is underestimated. You bond with problems." Over the next cycles, the Orlis delegation filed a formal report. It did not praise humanity's strength or intelligence. It highlighted something far stranger. Humans accept blame faster than comfort. The report spread beyond Karos Ring. On distant stations and worlds, analysts reread the data, confused. Humans were supposed to be impulsive, emotional, short-lived. Yet here was evidence of something else entirely. A species that stepped toward consequences instead of away from them. Elias returned to his routine work, but nothing felt routine anymore. Doors opened faster. Conversations stopped when he entered. Some species avoided him. Others watched with new interest. One day, as he repaired a grav plate, a young alien technician approached him. "Is it true," the technician asked carefully, "that you fixed an Orlis without permission?" Elias sighed. "Yeah." "Why?" Elias tightened a bolt and stood. "Because she needed help." The technician processed that. "No further justification?" "Nope." The technician nodded slowly, as if filing away a dangerous idea. Far above them, Saithra stood before a council projection, her form steady and bright. "The human did not act because he was allowed," she told them. "He acted because he was responsible. You will encounter this trait again. I advise preparation." The council asked the same question the station had. "What if humans are wrong?" Saithra's light pulsed calmly. "Then," she said, "they will clean that too." And somewhere deep within Karos Ring, Elias Trent tightened another bolt, unaware that the galaxy was quietly reclassifying his entire species. The changes did not arrive all at once. They came quietly, slipping into daily routines until Elias Trent almost missed them. Almost. He noticed it first in the maintenance request queue. Jobs that once came with strict instructions now came with a single line added at the end. Human judgment permitted. That line unsettled him more than any warning ever had. Elias stood in front of a power junction, staring at the words on his wrist screen. Around him, the station hummed as it always had. Gravity held. Lights stayed steady. Life went on, yet something had shifted beneath the surface, like a slow-moving current changing direction. He finished the repair and moved on, but the feeling followed him. Other species were watching humans more closely now. Not with fear. Exactly. With curiosity. They lingered nearby when humans worked, listening to their muttered thoughts and half-formed ideas. Some recorded everything. Others asked questions they would never have asked before. Why do you test before confirming safety? What do you do when logic fails? How do you decide who is responsible? Humans answered honestly, often differently, sometimes arguing with each other. That confused the observers even more. To the rest of the galaxy, disagreement meant weakness. To humans, it meant progress. Elias was assigned to a joint diagnostic team 3 cycles after the incident. The task involved a deep space relay node that had begun to drift out of alignment. The node served 6 species and was built using shared technology. No one could agree on who was responsible for the fault, so no one had touched it. Until now, the team included engineers from 4 species, a legal observer, and 1 Orlis representative, Envoy Scythra. Elias tried not to stare when he saw her. She acknowledged him with a slight shift of light, which he was beginning to understand was the Oralis version of a nod. The relay node was a mess. Systems layered on systems, each added to avoid altering existing designs. No one had removed anything in decades. Elias walked around it slowly, listening to the others debate classifications and jurisdiction. It is not failing, one engineer insisted. It is operating outside expected parameters. That is failure, Elias said. The engineer bristled. That is interpretation. Elias crouched near an access port. If it stops doing what it's supposed to do, it's broken. We can argue words later. He opened the panel. Immediately, alarms flared. The legal observer began shouting, "Unauthorized access." "I'm authorized," Elias said, tapping his screen and showing the new permissions. Human judgment. The observer fell silent. Inside the node, Elias saw the problem instantly. 3 different calibration systems were fighting each other, each trying to correct the same drift using different assumptions. The node was tearing itself apart slowly, politely, and completely by accident. "This is bad," Elias said. The other engineers leaned in. "It has always been this way," one said. "Yeah," Elias replied. "And it's always been wrong." He began disconnecting subsystems. The others protested. "You cannot remove legacy systems. They're still functional. Protocol demands gradual." "If we go gradual," Elias said, "this thing will fail in a year. Hard, possibly explosive." Silence. Scythra observed quietly, her light patterns slow and thoughtful. "You are dismantling shared safeguards," she said. "Safeguards that cancel each other out," Elias replied. "They're not protection, they're fear stacked on fear." The phrase caught her attention. Fear stacked on fear. Elias rebuilt the node in hours. He simplified it, stripped away redundancy that no longer served a purpose, and recalibrated the core alignment manually. When he finished, the node stabilized, humming with a smoothness none of them had heard before. The data confirmed it. Efficiency increased, drift eliminated. The team stared. "You removed 3 layers of protection," the legal observer said weakly, "and replaced them with understanding." Elias replied. Word spread quickly. Not just that a human fixed the node, but how he did it. He took responsibility for every change. He signed his name to the outcome. If it failed, it would be his failure. Other species found that terrifying. Orlis scholars requested access to human engineering philosophy. They studied human accident reports with fascination, confused by how openly humans documented their mistakes. Why record failure so precisely? Because humans expected to make more. Scythra requested another private conversation. This time, she brought records. "Since the incident," she said, "human involvement in crisis resolution has increased by 37%. Elias frowned. "That sounds dangerous." "It is," she agreed. "And effective," She projected data into the air between them, charts, patterns, outcomes. Every scenario where humans intervened showed the same trend. Faster resolution, higher short-term risk, lower long-term damage. You trade safety now for stability later, she said. We don't trade it, Elias replied. We spend it. Saithra tilted her head slightly. Explain. When things go wrong, Elias said. Someone pays. Time, energy, lives, reputation. Humans are willing to pay early so the cost doesn't grow. The concept settled heavily in the room. Among the Oralists, consequence was something to be delayed, minimized, distributed. Humans did none of those things. They took it personally. That realization led to the crisis. It began with a warning from the outer sensor array. An uncharted stellar anomaly was approaching the system, distorting gravity and radiation patterns. Models disagreed on its behavior. Some predicted a harmless pass. Others warned of catastrophic disruption. The station council froze. Evacuation was expensive. Repositioning the station carried risks. Waiting might mean nothing or everything. They debated. They delayed. Elias watched the projections from a maintenance bay, his jaw tightening. This is wrong, he said to his supervisor. They don't want to overreact, she replied. They're underreacting, Elias said. This thing doesn't behave like anything in their models. Saithra appeared beside them, her light tight and focused. The council seeks certainty, she said. They won't get it, Elias replied. Not in time. What would humans do? She asked. Elias hesitated. We'd assume the worst and move. The words hung in the air. Hours passed. The anomaly grew closer. Sensor data became erratic. Models collapsed under conflicting inputs. Finally, Saithra spoke before the council. The humans have a proposal, she said. The council reacted immediately. They are not authorized. They are experienced with uncertainty, she interrupted. Elias was brought forward, heart pounding. He faced beings who could decide the fate of millions. We don't know what that thing will do, he said simply. So stop trying to predict it. Prepare to survive it. He outlined a plan. Not elegant, not safe. It involved temporary system overloads, controlled structural stress, and manual human oversight across critical systems. It would strain the station but keep it flexible. If we're wrong, one council member said, the damage could be severe. Elias nodded. Yeah, it could. And if you are right, then we're still here. The room was silent. Saithra spoke. Humans cleaned what they made wet, she said. Now they offer to clean what may come. The council approved the plan by the narrowest margin possible. Humans moved fast. They climbed into places no one else could. They rerouted power with hands shaking but steady. They spoke constantly, sharing observations, correcting each other, in real time. When the anomaly struck, it was violent. Gravity twisted. Radiation spiked. Systems screamed, but the station bent instead of breaking. Hours later, when the anomaly passed, Karos Ring still floated intact, damaged, scarred, alive. In the aftermath, silence filled the council chamber. Not the frozen silence of indecision, the heavy silence of understanding. Elias sat on the floor of a maintenance corridor afterward, exhausted beyond words. His hands ached. His head rang. Saithra stood nearby. You were correct, she said. He shrugged weakly. We usually are. Eventually, the Oralis envoy studied him. Your species is dangerous, she said. Not because of your weapons, but because you accept consequence as a tool. Elias closed his eyes. We just don't like leaving messes, he murmured. Somewhere beyond the station, reports were already spreading. Not about heroics or dominance, about a species that stepped forward when others stepped back. And the galaxy was beginning to realize that once humans involved themselves in a problem, they rarely walked away from it. The station took weeks to fully recover. Scars remained everywhere. Bent support frames, patched hull sections, temporary power lines running like veins along the walls. To many species, the damage was proof that the human plan had been reckless. To humans, it was proof that the station had survived. Elias Trent returned to his normal routine as soon as he was cleared for duty. He repaired junctions, replaced cracked conduits, and recalibrated systems that still hummed slightly out of tune. He worked longer hours than usual, not because anyone ordered him to, but because there was work to finish. That was what humans did. Around him, the station felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just attentive. Other species no longer rushed past human engineers. They paused. They watched. Some asked questions. Some simply observed in silence, as if trying to understand something that could not be easily translated into data. Elias felt the weight of it every day. One cycle, he was summoned to the upper council chamber. The request was not marked as optional. He arrived in his work uniform, still smelling faintly of coolant and metal. The chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Holographic projections shimmered in the air, displaying charts, reports, and recordings of the anomaly event. Scythra stood among them, her crystalline form calm and radiant. The council chair spoke. Karos Ring survived an encounter that should have crippled it, the chair said. We must determine why. Data flowed across the room. Simulations compared outcomes with and without human intervention. The difference was impossible to ignore. You accepted significant damage, another council member said. Why? Elias shifted his stance. Because breaking a little is better than breaking completely. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. You risked lives, someone accused. Yes, Elias said. So we could save more. The council chair leaned forward. Do humans always operate this way? Elias thought carefully before answering. No. We argue. We make bad calls. We mess up. But when something matters, we choose action over comfort. Scythra stepped forward. What the human describes, she said, is not recklessness. It is ownership. The word carried weight, she continued. When responsibility is shared by many, it is often carried by none. Humans concentrate responsibility. They accept the burden early, while correction is still possible. The council fell silent. Records from across known space were displayed next. Incidents where humans had been involved. Colonies saved through improvised solutions. Disasters worsened by hesitation where humans had been ignored. Patterns emerged that no one could deny anymore. The chair spoke again. The classification of humanity must be revised. Elias's stomach tightened. Humans will no longer be listed as secondary support species, the chair said. They will be recognized as crisis response specialists. The room erupted into debate. This gives them influence. This encourages protocol violations. This changes power structures. Scythra raised a limb, and the room quieted. Reality has already changed, she said. This decision merely acknowledges it. The vote passed. Barely. When Elias left the chamber, his legs felt weak. He did not feel victorious. He felt tired. Word spread faster than he expected. Human ships began receiving requests from stations they had never visited. Not for trade. Not for defense. For help. Something's wrong. We don't know why. Send humans. Elias watched the reports from afar, uneasy. We're going to burn out, he told his supervisor. Maybe, she said. But we won't leave things broken. The Oralis delegation prepared to depart Karos Ring. Before leaving, Scythra requested one final meeting with Elias. They stood together near the same observation deck as before, stars drifting silently beyond the glass. My people have updated our cultural archives, she said. Your phrase has been added. Elias blinked. My phrase? You clean what you make wet, she said. We now use it to describe intentional responsibility. He laughed softly. Never thought I'd change an alien language. You did not, she replied. You revealed something that already existed. She turned toward him fully. Your species frightens many, she said. Do you know why? Elias shook his head. Because you do not wait for permission to care, she said. You decide something matters, and then you act as if it is already your duty. He looked away, uncomfortable. That gets us in trouble. Yes, she agreed. But it also keeps others alive. A transport signal chimed. The Oralis delegation was ready to leave. Before she turned away, Scythra spoke one last time. The galaxy will test humanity, she said. It always tests what it does not understand. Elias met her gaze. We'll mess up. I know, she said calmly. And you will clean that too. After the Oralis departed, Karos' ring slowly returned to its usual rhythm. But the idea left behind did not fade. Across space, councils rewrote contingency plans. Protocols added a new clause. If uncertainty exceeds acceptable limits, consult human operators. Some species resisted. Some resented it. Others quietly prepared. Elias remained where he was. Months later, a junior technician asked him why he never transferred to a command position. I don't want to decide everything, Elias said. But you changed everything, the technician said. Elias smiled faintly. That's usually how it happens. On a distant world, a station faced an impossible failure. Systems contradicted each other. Models collapsed. The council hesitated. Then someone spoke. Call the humans. On another station, an alien engineer faced a mistake they had made. For the first time, they did not hide it. They documented it. They owned it. The report ended with a new phrase. We will clean this. The galaxy did not become safer overnight, but it became more honest. And that honesty, that willingness to step forward and accept consequence, began to spread. Humanity did not rule the stars. They did not conquer them. They simply refused to leave things broken. And slowly, the universe learned that when humans said, "We'll handle it," they meant it not because they were perfect, but because they would stay until the mess was gone.